Here's an easy dish with Spanish influences that comes quick from the pantry. Beans and chorizo. Let me show you how I do it. I have about 8 ounces of a mild Spanish chorizo. I have some shallot and garlic and 2 kinds of white beans, both cannellini and butter beans. Some jarred roasted red peppers. We'll also use a little olive oil, salt, pepper, and a squeeze of lemon at the end. Okay, let's put it all together. Okay, I'm just adding about a tablespoon of olive oil and our shallot to a cold pan, and we'll start to heat that up. And then I'll get on to dicing our chorizo into about a 1/2 or 1/4 inch dice and add that along as well. If you're not familiar with chorizo, traditionally it's a Spanish sausage, has a lot of paprika in it, and it can last in the fridge or even the pantry for a long time, which is why it's a nice go-to. Sometimes it has a casing, sometimes it doesn't. If it does have a casing, I'd remove that. And you could slice this into rings, but I'm just doing a nice sort of rough dice or chop. I like the big chunks. All right, we'll get the last bit of our chorizo in. Turn up the heat slightly, and we just want the fat to start to render out of the chorizo, and also have our shallot soften up. Also a couple of cloves of garlic, but I'm not going to actually mince the garlic. I think I'm just going to throw in a couple cloves, give them a smash, take out the clove itself, leaving the skin behind. Throw that right in. We'll do that maybe 1 or 2 more times. Give that nice garlic flavor without having such the punch in there. Okay, everything is smelling really good. I'm going to add our beans in. I've given them a rinse and drain, but I also kept back some of the bean liquid, and we'll use that to sort of deglaze our pan at the very end if we have any brown bits at the bottom. I also love the different shapes of the beans. The cannellini beans are a little smaller. Our butter beans are a little bit bigger. Adds a nice contrast. Okay, we're going to add our jar of roasted red peppers. I'm just going to give this a nice rough chop through. Gives us another contrast and sort of lightens up the dish a little bit more instead of just being all beans and that chorizo, which is lovely and spicy. This adds a little bit more smokiness. Using a little bit of kosher salt today. Some grinds of pepper. Smells terrific. It's just been cooking for just a few minutes because really everything was almost already cooked through. And what you'll find is that the beans and the starchiness as well as the chorizo starts to add a bit of a crust to the bottom of the skillet. So we want to pull that crust up and deglaze, if you will, and that's where a little bit of our bean liquid comes in. Maybe just a tablespoon or 2. And then work a wooden spoon on the bottom of your skillet, work up all of those brown bits, and it just sort of adds a loveliness around all of the beans. Okay, we're on the final home stretch. I've turned the heat off. I've also fished out a couple of the garlic cloves, or you could leave them in, that's just fine. But to add just a little bit of brightness to the end of this, I'm going to do a squeeze of lemon. If you didn't have lemon, maybe a tablespoon or couple teaspoons of a red wine vinegar as well, but I think it just adds something extra at the end that really brings up the flavor. Oh, so good. To take our Spanish theme just a little bit further, I happen to have some Manchego cheese. I'm gonna put just a little bit of that over top. I hope you try making these beans and chorizo at home, and I hope you enjoy.